Welcome to Growing Your Team, a podcast designed for small business owners seeking to grow their company with the help of employees and contractors. Your time is limited, which means growing and leveraging teams is essential for business success. The Growing Your Team podcast is the place to learn tips and techniques designed to help you know when it's the right time to hire, how to select perfect fit team members, and how to maximize productivity while creating a positive work environment. Drawing from her 10-plus years of leadership and hiring experience, here is your host, Jamie Van Kuyk.
Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Nate Ginter. Nate is the CTO of Vine IT and a 20-year veteran of the IT and cybersecurity fields. A native of Pennsylvania who transplanted to St. Petersburg, Florida a decade ago due to the lure of IT at the beach. As a certified project manager and cybersecurity auditor, Nate helps guide businesses of all sizes to better and more secure technology workflows. And that's exactly what Nate and I are talking about today. We're talking about how to keep your information safe. And before you think, oh, I'm not big enough for this, guess what? If you have a team member, you are big enough for this. We even talk about some things that you should be doing if you're still a business of one to protect your data and your information. So we're talking about in this episode a number of ways to keep your business safe. From that very first employee, things that you should be doing equipment-wise, security-wise, to growing your business even bigger than that. We're also talking about how to keep your data safe, your information safe, your account safe on a personal side. So let's jump into the episode and hear from Nate how to be safe from a technology standpoint. Hi, Nate. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Well, thanks, Jamie. It's, of course, a pleasure to be here with a fellow Ella Leadership St. Pete class of 2022 member.
Yes, class second to none.
Absolutely.
Before we jump in and get started today, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I have been doing IT and cybersecurity for going on 20 years now. So, naturally, I'm about 25. And I'm a transplant from Pennsylvania, moved down to start our company, Vine IT, about 10 years ago. So I've lived in St. Petersburg that whole time. I actually lived in Florida for a bit as a child as well. So it wasn't my kind of first time down here, but definitely my first time in such a nice area of Florida, and where I plan on making my home for many moons to come. I started out doing some large corporate IT for what you would think of as like a Spectrum or a Bright House down here. And then moved into what we call managed services IT, where, you have that kind of contractual outsourced IT model. And then from there moved into cybersecurity and got a chance to start a company with a couple of people that I worked with previously down here, and just decided that IT at the beach sounded a lot more fun than IT in the snow and woods of Pennsylvania.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I love St. Pete, and originally being from Western New York, it's a lot nicer down here in the winters than it is up there.
It is. I always say, when I was a kid, we went to vacation in Atlantic City and Ocean City, and I saw one day in Ocean City they have a high school that was literally on the beach, and I said to my mom, I go, "We're doing it wrong. Okay, we come here like 1 week a year. I could be going to Ocean City High School on the beach. Why do we live in the woods 360 days a year that I come down here?" So I decided as an adult with my own choices, I'm going to do it right. I work at the beach and live at the beach. And then, if I want to go hang out with my family, I do so a couple weeks a year.
Right. Go up, see the snow, see the
Absolutely.
fall colors, and then come back to the warmth.
Oh, the colors in the woods I do miss, though. Boy, it is pretty in the autumn time.
Yes. When you're talking about views from high schools, most of the time the view from my high school was probably a 15 to 20 foot pile of snow that blocked it, that made it so you couldn't see into the parking lot.
Oh yeah, it's especially Western New York is no joke. You got the mountain ranges right there.
Right. And all the lake effect snow off of Lake Ontario
Ooh,
and everything. So we got lots of snow. So
I got a little chill just thinking about it.
I'm happy not to have to shovel a driveway like ever.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, let's talk all about computers and IT and everything within small businesses. I
Sure.
feel like this is such an important topic because I feel like a lot of businesses do it wrong when they're in those startup stages.
So that's something that's very common. Is that sort of DIY. A lot of people, especially younger people these days, we know enough to be dangerous, and you're like, okay, well, I'll just create a Google account, or I'll set all my accounts up, with some personal account, and then come back later and do things, and or try to end around the correct way, or maybe you find a cheap solution for something that works really well for 1 to 5 people, but it doesn't scale, and so you end up with like servers in your office that you don't want to have to maintain. And then now in this remote work world, or where we're outsourcing to other parts of the country, you have to do things with VPNs, and try to get everybody linked into all these centralized resources that we're holding on to. So I'm a bit of what you would call a cloud evangelist. So I believe in trying to find that kind of Netflix model for whatever you're doing. The way I describe it is basically, there's nothing that stops you from going out and buying a big, 30 disc DVD changer and a server and a rack, and putting it in your house and building your own little library where you can go do stuff, or you can give Netflix $15 a month and, just let them bring it all to you. That model is that kind of keeping all that stuff yourself. It's mine. I know where it is. I feel safe when it's in my office, which always makes me laugh, because I try to say to people like, let's game this out. Okay. You feel safer in your office that's 10 miles from the shore, where at any given time a monsoon can come by and literally pick your building up, than you do with Microsoft, which distributes all their data across multiple data centers. And they've even got stuff where they take storage crates and sink it under the ocean to keep them cool in separate data centers. And there's armed guards and stuff. I'm like, come on, we all know it's going to be a little bit safer there.
Right, exactly. Let's go back to like one of the questions I have that I feel like I get a lot. I work with a lot of businesses that they're really hiring their first time employee. They've worked with contractors in the past, and now they're bringing on employees for the first time. And one of the questions I always get is, should I be providing them a computer, or can they just use their own?
So the answer to that is, you can. With a lot of systems, there are ways to protect them no matter what device they're using. But generally, I'm a big proponent of work for work and play for play, even with my own personal equipment. So, the answer to that question I always give people is the $500 to get them their own laptop like that much of a deal breaker? Again, for some ultra small businesses, that may be the case. But in reality, get them their own machine, have it be company owned for company resources. The reason being, there's a couple best practices, especially in modern times, that you can do to protect remote workers. And one of which is that there's a monitoring and recording software called Terramind. It's TERAMIND.co. They sell directly to everybody. And it does a couple of different things, but the coolest thing, and one of the things that's a big challenge, is how do I manage teams? How do I see what people are doing? How do I have that visibility? You can literally have a dashboard of live what everybody in your company is doing on their screens at a time. So let's say you're managing a team of 5 people. You can actually have that pulled up on your screen and see what's going on. Most employees aren't going to want that on their home machine. I like to say good fences make good neighbors. And I like to tell my guys, hey, yes, I do see what you're doing. I don't care if you stop and take a YouTube break, or, you're looking at some article or something for a couple of minutes. That's not what this is here for. It's there to protect them. And as much as it is to protect the company from, loss of work product, that's actually my secondary concern. Main concern being, my guys are working on sensitive data and in people's systems. So if somebody goes, one of your guys did something, and I will say, well, here's the person who was in, and here's what he did. so that I can prove to you that didn't happen.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think there's like so many good things that you said there. Is first is like the separation of work and play. Like I'm a big person with that. I
Sure.
like to give my employees a computer because I'm like, I want you working when you're working and I want you not working when you're not working. I even tell them all the time, I'm like, I might send you an email because I'm up and working at 10 o'clock at night. I don't expect you to answer until the next time that you sit down at your computer and answer it.
Right.
I tell my employees when they start, I don't expect you to put email on your phone. If you want to, because it's convenient for you, great. But stop working when you're supposed to stop working, because I don't want you working 24/7. I want you to have a break and a life, and
so you
not
do
see
bring
that
up
notification.
You bring up something interesting, which is, and for your employees, I think it's awesome when you can provide that environment. There are some jobs where, the people are on call, or they have to have that constant notification, or, the ability to access, even for their workday, things from their phone. But you can actually set timers for different notifications and alerts through Outlook or Gmail to make it so, for example, after 8 p.m., I stop receiving new email notifications on my phone until 8 a.m. So, my team always knows they can call me, but that's just so I don't go nuts. Cause again, I'm very like, oh, squirrel, and I'm trying to sit and enjoy, some movie that I like, or I'm sitting out and, relaxing, enjoying dinner with some friends. And then all of a sudden I see an envelope pop up. I'm going to want to look at it. It's
Right.
just, it's going to happen. So there are ways that, whether it's you as an employee or you as an employer through policy, can actually help with some of that work-life balance, even, on a device like a phone, where, it's really not uncommon. I would say more often than not these days, people in professional industries have to, or, want to have that access from a portable device like an iPad or their phone. But, like you said, you want them to be able to enjoy that work-life balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Not get on a work computer and feeling like, oh, I'm getting on a computer to, I don't know, go search Amazon for something I need to buy. And oh, now I see this, or is my boss going to get mad, or stuff like that. So I was thinking, if you can, like you said, sometimes in small businesses, it does come down to that affordability. But sometimes that affordability is, you got to plan for your employees. Like if it's $500 to get a computer, how long is it going to take you to get that $500 so you can afford to get your employee that computer, and think of it as that new hire onboarding cost?
So the new hire onboarding cost is a great segue into one of the things people ask me a lot is, what should I be spending on IT? And, overall, and then that's licensing and hardware and, things like Microsoft 365 or, Google Workspace for your email and, calendaring and meetings and those sorts of things. And the answer there is between 3 to 5% is what enterprises spend. So as a smaller organization, you won't be able to take advantage of all of the, group huge bulk discounts that some of those things get. So I typically say for a smaller business, I'm talking, 50 people or under, you should be looking at squarely around 5%, especially when starting up, of payroll, should I say.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. Is that 5% of payroll, or 5% of like your revenue?
No. So about 5% of payroll. And the reason, one of the things that I tell people, because people always ask me, well, what should I spend on a computer? And there was, of course, an answer on that pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. The costs have risen a little bit, but the reality is, and I tell people this, if it's not going to break the bank for you, try to get somebody a very nice, speedy machine. Because if you think of it this way, how foolish is it if it's going to make people, I tell them, 1% more productive? You're going to have this device for probably 3 to 5 years. You think of an average of over 1,000, work hours in a work year. If you get an extra 40, 50 work hours out of somebody that you're paying $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 a week, doesn't it make more sense just to spend an extra $200 and get something really nice that people have a great work experience with and they're proud of? That penny wise and pound foolish notion comes into IT quite a bit. So
yeah. I remember back when I was in corporate, there was this thing where you got to have your laptop has to be so many years old before you can get a new one. And we had a new CEO that came in, and I forget the exact circumstance, but something happened where he was around when an employee was there, when the computer was just super slow to load, or maybe it had to restart for something. And he was like, oh my gosh, how often does this happen? And the person's like, 2 to 3 times a day. And then he found out that other people are having this issues too. And he was like,
Mhm.
wait, do you like, I understand new computers cost money, but do you understand how much productivity we're losing when you're in the middle of something and all of a sudden you have to wait?
Right.
And with my employee that I had a computer for her. I spent a decent amount on the computer, but something
Mhm.
happened and started really slowing down, and
Mhm.
it was impacting her productivity. Like even we were going to get on meetings, and sometimes like she'd be on the phone with me, and it's like, oh my gosh, the computer won't load up. So the first thing I did was say, okay, we need to get you another computer. Like we're
Mhm.
done. I'll send you a new computer. We'll get a new one set up, and we'll figure out what's going on to the old one to figure out, do I trash it? Is it under warranty or stuff? But my first thing was, we got to get you a computer that you can actually do your job with.
So whether you're, you have somebody, you're big enough to have somebody in house, or, you outsource IT to a company like myself, there's some basic good recommendations to have. And one of which is, I call it your employee count plus one. Whenever I ask people like, oh, how many computers do you have? It should always be however many employees you have plus one, so that if somebody has a computer issue that takes them down, that we can quickly get them up and working again. Because if you think of it this way, if somebody is making, we'll call it just $40 an hour, and they have something that takes them down for 4 hours at the end of the day, we've just spent $160. Okay. So that $160 for one person could have just been put, and that's assuming it only takes 4 hours, is perfectly diagnosed, and they're back up at 100%. Because as we know, it never takes 3 or 4 tries for IT.
Right.
So, you end up throwing hundreds of dollars into the trash can to not have an awesome system sitting there. You can just, boom, here we go. And you're back up and running. So even if, you're a little smaller and that's not feasible for you, I really advise people to lower that threshold of how much they think they're willing to put up with, because especially as a manager, what you're seeing, you're not feeling the anxiety, the direct frustration of the people that are reporting to you with these things. It leads to all of these crazy feelings that you're like, for a couple $100, we could have just had the spare one sitting around. And then, it's not like you're throwing that money for the other one, away. That's going to get repaired, and that becomes a new spare.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's such a good thing to do. And it's like, there's a lot of things. You have your backup, you have your thing where you can immediately go out there and replace something. So why not with computers, especially when most jobs now, 100% of the work involves computers.
Oh, again, being a cloud evangelist, with people that are used to working with their server, their in-house server stuff, and I say, we want to rip all that stuff out. We're going to put you on Microsoft 365. We're going to get you SharePoint for sharing files wherever you want. We're going to get you that world-class email and protection, and we're going to find, the QuickBooks Online solutions for you. All these things where they don't run locally on your computer. They're super fast. They're cloud-based, and people go, well, what if the internet goes out? And I go, if you don't have the internet, what are you doing anyway?
Right.
Like, I mean, there's, unless you're running a manufacturing shop, and we have a couple, things that those are a little bit different, but for most professional services company, if you have no internet, you probably have no phones. If you can tell me what you're doing with no email and no phones and, no access to anything outside of what's in your building, the real answer should be, how do we keep the internet from going down and make sure it comes back as fast as possible when it does go down? We're focusing on the wrong thing here. By the way,
Right.
why is your internet going down so often that it's a business problem that you're developing infrastructure around?
So it's hilarious. So, but let me tell you this little story. So there
Sure.
was a while ago, our internet, I work out of the house, my husband works out of the house. Our internet kept going, like just blipping, where it would go completely down. I'd get kicked off meetings, and we were talking to WOW constantly. We're like, what is going on? People were at our house constantly trying to figure out what is going on. Because we're like, we run businesses, I run my business from home. He works for a corporate company, but like, we can't have this. And we finally found out it was a squirrel ate the line outside.
Oh, well, that's not uncommon. And I mentioned, one of my first jobs was working for a Bright House like company. I'll tell you two quick stories that were hilarious. There was a person. So when you run what they call an internet service provider, that's what WOW is, you're actually federally required to get service to certain people. It's a law that they have to do to get a license for a given area or service. So our company had thrown, I'm going to say $200,000 trying to figure out why this woman's service kept going down. And they replaced every wire known to man. And it turned out that there was one small little run inside of one of the walls that no one could ever found. And it was being chewed on by a cat periodically. And when the cat would chew on it, it would go out. So that's not uncommon. One of the things that can make those things very difficult to troubleshoot is when they're intermittent. That's the craziest part. So when a wire starts to go, because wires rarely go bad, but when they do, it's like the little thing, I don't always go bad, but when I do, I go terribly bad. It's a really hard one to find, because everything tests great when it's working and terrible when it isn't.
Right.
But the other story, this is just one of my favorite anecdotes. There was we did TV service as well, and there was a woman who had called in. She was an elderly lady, and she complained to 3 different technicians that she was told, and she knows it's true, that when she pushed like the volume up button and that little LED lights up, that it was taking a picture of her. So finally she gets to like the 3rd manager, and he calms her down, and she's fine. And he gives them back to the original tech to do a wrap up. Now we were, very low paid boys, barely out of college, making, better than minimum wage, but not by much. And this kid will always be my hero. He goes, "If we answered all your questions, Dave," she goes, "Yes, thank you. I appreciate you taking your time." And he goes, "Well, you have a lovely evening, and your hair looks amazing tonight." Click, and then hung up. And I said, "Dude, that's probably the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life." This poor woman, for the rest of her life, now believes, without a doubt, that when she pushes a button on a remote, it takes a picture of her and sends it back to the internet.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a funny story. You probably traumatized that lady, or he probably traumatized that lady.
Ma'am, that was that. Jamie, you know me. Would I do such a thing? No, that was the other guy, not me.
I don't know, Nate. I could totally see you making a comment like that. Maybe not in a business setting. Maybe not.
Let's throw the word allegedly in front of there. We're good.
Oh. And now I had something I was going to ask you about, and I don't know, it completely, let's see. So
I will tell you, one of the things that, you were asking me about, common mistakes that, smaller firms make when they're setting up. And the answer is not seeking professional help and guidance. Obviously, of course, yes, I run an IT company. I'm going to say you should talk to an IT company, even if you're not ready to have them, get on a regular support and maintenance contract, or have them perform a bunch of services to them. It's a good idea to approach them and say, "Listen, I'm willing to do a smaller project. I've only got a couple of people, so it's not like this is some 20, 30 hour thing, but I want to make sure that I'm setting up the bones of what I'm doing correctly." In order to accommodate future growth, and that at least what I have, I'll be able to add on to, rather than being some system that I'll have to scrap and won't fit my needs. So,
I think that's so important, because Nate, I don't remember, it was like months and months ago, back when we first started our Leadership St. Pete journey together. I remember telling you about what was going on. Like, I had my first employee that was working for me, and I had someone set up everything. And then when the second employee came on, things like, she didn't have access to a lot of the files. And I'm like, "What is going on? Why don't you have access to these files?" Well, little did I know that when my first employee was giving access, she was giving access to, like, on our Microsoft things, like my personal drive on there.
Right.
But
right.
some of it was being, I don't know. So that when the other person came on, like, she didn't get full access to my drive, but I thought everything was set up where it was like kind of like the SharePoint, like shared drive, like here are our company drives. And I would have never known that if it wasn't for them like digging into it, finding out, and like, "Oh, here's the problem. Things aren't set up on a company drive. They were set up on a personal drive."
So here's the funny part. If you think about how many times you went to do something and somebody had to start and stop, maybe sometimes something had to involve 2 people, then going like, whoa, and just distracting from what your core focus and your core mission for your position or their position, what those are, those costs really add up and can slow momentum down. And that only multiplies the more employees you have. So, and it's not always, that you need to go and find, professional services companies. Sometimes there are, individual contractors and things that you can, post for specific jobs that you're looking to have performed to avoid exactly that thing. So it's such a simple thing. Well, did we set up SharePoint or just OneDrive and you're sharing files out of my thing? No, I don't fault anybody who doesn't know that going into it. It makes complete sense, but I can't tell you how many people will, they decide they want to start using Dropbox for their business, and they'll create a personal account. And then lo and behold, they're like, well, I need to share with somebody else. So I'm going to have them get another personal account and share my files over there. I'm like, well, that's cool. So we're going to have a patchwork of stuff between you guys. What if I told you just got an awesome new contract and you've got to quadruple your base? Now we're going to have 6 different accounts with like stuff crisscrossed all over the place. No, of course, we want that central repository. That's why there's Dropbox Business. And yes, it is an extra $10 per person per month, but it eliminates all of these headaches. And when you sit and you go, oh, wait, how much is my time worth again? That's something you probably talked about on your cast many times, is knowing the value of your own time.
Exactly.
And then the value of your employees' time as well.
Yeah. Like I remember having a conversation with someone months and months and months ago. They were bringing out a new employee and they're like, what do I do? How do I do this? It's going to cost me, I think, $15 a month. And I just remember looking at them. I was like, if you can't, this was a full-time employee. And I'm like, if you can't afford $15 a month additional when you're hiring a full-time employee, maybe you shouldn't be hiring that full-time employee. Like that's really a drop in the bucket for things to be set up correctly.
Oh, absolutely. And, there's also, things that a lot of people aren't aware of, like, so obviously Microsoft and Google, these platforms, they're great and they don't typically lose your data, but they only agree to actually keep them. Sometimes you go look and their stuff there, it's a little older, but they only actually agree to keep your data for 2 weeks, especially if it gets deleted. So if you can imagine you have an employee who maybe wasn't doing their job, whatever, you decide to let them go, everything goes normal. You don't think anything of it. And then you go look for a report that's done monthly and you're like, oh, wait, that's gone. Okay, well, let me see if I can restore it. Wait, there's nothing there. You have no record. There's actually backup service you get that will actually back up your whole Microsoft Office 365 or Google instance, so that even in the event that, an employee who should have had access to things deletes something or tries to hide it, you can always go back and find these things. And it's a couple bucks per person per month. Small potatoes for, making sure that's there. And, coming from the days of old industrial backups that used to cost, thousands and thousands of dollars for a company, I'm like, $3 per person is a bargain. Just take it, please.
Right. Oh yeah. Cause how much would it cost you if you lost all that stuff? It'd be crazy amount of rework, amount of stuff that you could just never get back, possibly making like you're putting a bad taste in your client's mouth because they're like, what do you mean you don't have this anymore?
Right. Yeah. And people, we get it all the time, or we go into backups to find, we're like, when's the last time you saw it? And then we can see the actual name of the file and it was like wrong or something. And we find somebody's dragged it to somewhere else. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we found it, but we needed to know where it was when it was good. So, they can be quite useful, especially if you're working with a lot of files.
Right. All right. So I have a question about something else when it comes to security. Sure. Passwords.
Don't matter.
What do you mean don't matter?
So this is a funny thing because everybody just goes, what do you mean they don't matter? Microsoft and the US government have come out and said, if you are depending on a username and password system to protect your data, you needn't bother. Passwords do not stop anything these days. You want to make sure that you're using what they call multi-factor. It used to be called two-factor authentication. And most people probably are using it. It's that, same way if you go to sign into your bank account or a credit card and you've got either like an authenticator app on your phone where you hit yes or no, or sometimes they text you a 6-digit number. Those are examples of multi-factor authentication. You should, if you're running a business and you're using anything for business purposes, that should be on 100% of things that you care about. People ask me all the time, like, what do I need it on my email? I'm like, hey, do you care if I read every single email you have and publish them online? Okay, then we need to have it on email. Well, do I need to have it for like my Dropbox? I'm like, again, can I take all your files and send them to all your neighbors? Because if I can't, then we need to have it turned on. And it's a free security setting on almost every platform that's out there. And it's something that, is often, overlooked, where people go, well, it's such a hassle. I'm like, Oh, you've never had a data compromise before. That's a hassle.
Right. Right. Okay. But I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, I hear
Sure.
you, Nate, but oh my God, it's
Okay.
such a pain at times. Or it's such a pain at times because of like, I'm on my computer and my phone's across the other side of the house and I have to go get my phone to like get this code or
So,
sometimes I know you and I talked about for personal life stuff. My husband and I have signed up for things like it's one account, it goes to his phone and he's not home. And I'm like, great. All right, Derek, I'm trying to pay this bill. Can you try to send me the code? And hopefully you send it to me before it times out. So it's like, I hear you, but it's such a struggle at times.
Now, you were talking with the wonderful Heather Shumbris last time about having proper employee onboarding procedures. What you need is a proper marriage onboarding procedure where you have it scheduled when the bills are being done. So the appropriate person with the appropriate phone is trying to log in. The real answer there is what you just talked about. It's an inconvenience for you. It's an impossibility for somebody who doesn't have access to the phone. And that's the important part. So,
right.
Of the major breaches that I have seen in my career, I have never seen a single one, not that it's impossible, but in my personal career, and I've dealt with a lot of things, a single system that was compromised with multi-factor authentication enabled for their stuff, especially for small business. You'll hear about things. Yes, there are some bypasses that, some government got hacked or something and, they found some weird thing. The reality is for small businesses, it is high 90th in the 99 percentiles effective. And if you don't have it, the likelihood that you will be compromised is very high. I can say conversely, every single attack that I've seen, whether it's ransomware, whether it's people getting their emails or their file systems brute force, it has always been with a lack of multi-factor in place. So if you call me panicked in the middle of the night and you go, Dave, somebody got it on my company emails, emailing my clients. And I go, well, Jamie, do we have multi-factor turned on? You're like, well, I got tired of the phone being across the room. I'm going to go,
You say you did it to yourself, Jamie. Did it to yourself. All right. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, and I know you gave a great tip when we were just chatting about for the personal side. You said, one way to do it is either set up like a Google Voice number that goes to both phones. So that way you get it, or, something else where you both have access to it on all your devices. So you're not dependent on some person being around in order to get that code.
Man, there I go giving good advice for free again. So that is, there's a couple of cool tricks you can do. So especially for anything that goes to email, you can actually have an email account that you just use for that or an email account that you would both have on your phone, or Google Voice through Gmail will actually give you an email address where you can, right? If I sent you a text, it actually turns that text into an email and sends it to that address. So whether, when you're signing up for, two-factor for Duke Energy, you don't use one of your cell phone numbers, use that Google Voice number you've got, and then either one of you can look at it in a Gmail.
Now, okay, I get that for the personal side, but what about for the business side? Because I know there's some things where they don't have different users.
Yeah, no, we've seen companies do that where there's a resource that multiple people need access to. So we set it to send a 2FA code to a specific number that emails, a group of people. That can happen as well.
Okay. So there is a way to do that on the business side too. Cause I know there's certain things that we use where I believe if there's the ability, everyone should have their own username and password, own logins. That way, who's doing what, but there are some things that we use that don't give that ability for there to be multiple users accessing the same thing. So you have to use the same information.
So I would say, generally speaking, those are the wrong platforms for you then, because it's not servicing one of your primary needs, which is scalability. So, and again, the solutions that you use when you're a handful of people, maybe even 10 people, are going to be different than your long-term maturity. But when you get in the habit of doing looking for those platforms early that scale with you, God, does it make growth easier, should I say. Most of the things so I built a previous company. I was like the first help desk employee, ended up going into project management when they had about 5 employees. Ended up being there until they grew to 25. And going through that experience and seeing the different types of things, the different products that they employed for a wide variety of things, from project management to sharing to remote security to these things, when we started Vine, I paid a little bit more to have these solutions that I knew were going to scale with my business. And it has been one of the greatest decisions that I've made in business. And I will tell you the dividends that will pay you, especially, if you're planning on running a 2-person bakery and you don't ever want to get more than 2 people, well, that's different than the person who has the vision that say, I want to have a franchise of bakeries. So that growth paradigm there is something that, if you're looking to be able to grow and scale, as most people are that are entrepreneurs or in small to medium-sized businesses, I tell, pay more to have the right thing, because it's not actually that much more. And over time, it will, the amount of money that you'll save in easy scalability far outweighs, ripping a system out and replacing it with a new process, as is painful. It's a time investment and a money investment oftentimes. So when you can get it right, or at least get it close early on, the more money that you'll save as you grow.
I think that's so smart. Like Nate, you mentioned the episode with Heather that by the time this comes out, it'll be a few episodes back. With that, like one of the pain points she talked about in the company that she worked for was the fact that what worked when they were smaller didn't work as they were continuing to grow. And there was all these pain points of like trying to do something new and it just wasn't working. So
sure,
maybe it's working for you today, but is it going to work for you in the future? And either you make the change when it's easier now, or you make the painful change later when you're bigger and you have more people on there. So I do like that. Think ahead for scalability. I'm working with a company now where one of their biggest problems is kind of like their project management system. There are multiple offices that used to work pretty much as islands, and now they're trying to come together. And they have a system that they've been paying for 2 years that they can't get people to transition over because they're so stuck in their habits. And it's that they're really experiencing those pains, and they're like, how do we force people to do this? And so they're going through that, and they're like, it would be so much easier, right?
Sadly, it is. So
but some of the old stuff's like Excel and stuff like that, where how do you turn off an Excel spreadsheet? Some of those things where it's like very, very.
Oh, I can tell you, but
but a lot of those offices have been functioning since before there was even internet in the business. So, it's an older business. So.
Well, no, so that you bring up something interesting, which is, that you can't always directly go from I'm on A and I'm trying to get to C and I'm trying to skip over B, which is translation of old processes into either a new software or figuring out something that's outside of my comfort zone. Anything you can do in Excel for project management, you can do in a project management system. The difference is somebody there is uncomfortable learning a new system and learning a new way to do things. And traditionally speaking, that tends to be older employees. And I'll tell you a true story, much like a carnival barker. They could walk up and, a guy walks up like Hulk Hogan and he's like, I bet I can guess his weight. And he gets it within like an inch. When somebody tells me, hey, I've had an IT man, we've got these systems in my company, and I hear about, we're using like remote desktop protocol, which was like all the rage like 15 years ago, and they don't want to transition to 365. And he says he doesn't trust this. I'm like, I can tell you the age range of your manager. I can tell you almost exactly how long he's been with that particular company. We become entrenched in our ways as we get older. So one of the things that keeps me so incredibly young, I mean, you guys can't see this, but I'm practically 21 at this point, going on 41. And one of the things that keeps me young and keeps my mind limber is the fact that, because we manage many different companies across many different verticals that are different sizes, we're always looking for new solutions, new ways to do things. It makes me laugh a little bit when I hear about somebody experiencing that much trouble with the project management software, because I've been there. I've been through those exact scenarios where, you have, and they got away with doing it a certain way for a very long time. That comfort zone is there. And boy, when it's going to take 3 times longer to go do it a different way for the first, 10 times, boy, it seems very unattractive, especially if you're, trying to get to the bar by 5:15.
Right.
But sometimes, you got to say, hey, maybe this is a 7:00 night tonight because we got this system to learn. And that's a tough thing to do.
Or sometimes bringing in temporary help that can help
Right.
them do their day work as they're trying to transition and learn
Oh
new
yeah.
systems. You've got to give your
Yeah.
employees the time to learn something new, the time to transition, and you can't always expect the same productivity when they
Oh,
have
for
that
sure.
additional things on their plate.
And you know that you said something that is really so very important, which is and by the way, what a crazy idea that a lot of people probably haven't thought of. I'll bring in temporary workers to get entrenched in my company to help my existing employees transition to new processes. So just that right there is such a genius, like little nugget that I think people could have easily skipped over. So there's so many things like that where you can go, okay, well, here's my current workflow and I can do it, but let me shadow it a second time in this new thing I'm trying to do. So yes, are you duplicating effort? Yes, but you're seeing each step along the way. Okay, here's where my weakness is going to be in this. So, all right, well, we know where that problem is. So we solve that one. And then the next time we do it, same thing. Okay, well, we got halfway through this time, until you get to those points where you can really be fully functional in the new system.
Right. And like, there's the one thing to think about it is you don't need to go and just find a new system for the same process. It's finding a better process in a new system to support it. It's one of those things of don't get stuck in old habits just because it's the way it's always been. It's looking at things. How can we improve things? What can we knock out of this process? What steps can be eliminated? What can be added to make it more efficient?
I'll give you a beautiful one. So we get this, when we're talking to companies about things, one of the big things we find when people still have old in-house servers, one of the, I'll say the top 5 products that are the reason they still run those in-house servers is because they have QuickBooks installed locally rather than using QuickBooks Online. And there's some really great excuses why that's there. And early on, when QuickBooks Online was new 7 years ago, there were a couple of legitimate gripes. Almost every single one of them has been wiped out, and they've all been wiped out by better functionality that exists. But I will say that to say, one of the common excuses is, well, my accountant only deals with, she makes us export a QuickBooks company file and send it to her and or him, and that's sorry, got to he or she these days, and that is the only way that they'll take it. I go, well, then that's cool. Let me go get a phone book. I'm going to find a new accountant, because the fact that they're not willing to support what is the vastly newer process can sometimes be a crazy thing. Like whenever you run into, oh, well, we would love to do this new improved process, but so-and-so only does it a certain way. Guys, you just made my job so much easier. It's time to have a talk with so-and-so.
Right? Right. It is. It's like, you can't hold on to someone who's unwilling to adapt to the new process and what is best for the company. I know I talked about on the podcast before was when my first employee turned in her notice and she quit. And it was like one of the best things that could happen, because we reached this point where what I needed no longer matched what she could give. And it was this mutual thing. She got a different job right at the same time. I'm like, oh my God, what do? I love her,
right,
but it's not serving my company anymore. And you have to think about that as even employees who've been with you 20 years, 10 years, if they're no longer serving the company and they're stopping you from doing something that is going to be beneficial, you need to look at, do I still need this person anymore?
And that can be a hard thing to do. And one of the things, that we run into a lot, because a lot of in my business as a managed service IT provider, we're taking over for somebody else. And it's become a bad fit. It's responsiveness. It's, hey, we're having these problems. They keep coming up continually. And some of that, just getting an outside perspective on things is interesting. And you start running into the same, groups of people, the same companies in any given area. And one of the things that's funny is knowing which companies, when I walk in and I go, oh, who are you using for IT? And they go, I'm using so-and-so. And they talk about these problems they're having. I know that company actually has the capability to give them newer systems that are better. And for a number of reasons, sometimes it's revenue that they're making off of what they're selling currently or whatever. They're just not making the client aware of these things or saying, if you want these problems to go away, you need to do X, Y, or Z. And, that finding that better fit really is sometimes it's kind of sad, because, I have a couple of people that I've talked to in the industry and things, and, my former company up north where, we've all been sitting down at dinner. I've said, hey, that you've lost 3 clients in the last year just because your guys weren't willing to give up the revenue that you made off of storing all their stuff in your office. So you lost all of the revenue. And by the way, there's other ways to make money, than the way that you're doing it. And these people weren't, and they liked you, and everybody's always, oh, well, people get very Hufflepuff with a lot of things, but sometimes it's even just talking to people like, hey, this is the way we approach things. At Vine, we're a little different. And then, like I said, we're cloud evangelists. We, my goal is to make things as simple as possible. And we try to, whatever possible, establish the billing relationships for softwares with our clients directly. So I'm not holding the bag over your head. If you, it's not fear of what happens or what am I going to lose. It's happiness for our service and liking what we do for people. That I think makes a big difference in how you do things. And it should be the same way with employees. You should never feel like an employee, your love of an employee should never hold you back from making that employee role a better thing for the company, because that's ultimately better for everybody.
Exactly. All right, Nate, we need to wrap up for today. So tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
All right. I see the cane coming out from the corner to yank me off the stage here. So you can find us at vineit.com. That's vineit.com. There's, if you have any questions, there's actually a thing to schedule a free consultation call with us at any time. We take anybody of any size. So, we're always happy to help people. And even if you just have some questions, especially, if you're a St. Pete local, either starting a business or you think maybe your IT guy just isn't any good, give me a shout. I'm always happy to talk. And I always say at a minimum, you'll walk away with probably a couple of chuckles and a couple good ideas.
Sounds good. Thanks, Nate. All right. My final question that I love to ask all my guests.
Sure.
We've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us, whether in our personal life or our professional life. So think of a leader or manager that stood out to you and share one thing about them.
So there's been a couple in my career that really have stood out to me. One of the things that really stood out to me most is my current partner and CEO, Mike Thackeray, when he came on board. Also an LSP guy, by the way, had built another successful landscaping company and had a calmness and a steadiness about him that I wasn't sure was going to transfer into IT, which I always found to be more frantic. And, if a lawn doesn't get mowed until tomorrow, that's probably okay. If a server is down and a company can't work until tomorrow, probably not okay. But that kind of calm and steady nature, approaching things from, a problem solving perspective, but not just, the immediate problem, but also the client perception issues. Like, it really stood out to me and bringing that into all aspects of leadership and company growth. And whether it's, setting employee culture and those sorts of things, he's always really stood out to me as a great example. And I feel very blessed to work with him on a continued basis.
All right. Thank you, Nate. Nate, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. And thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Absolutely. Hey, whenever you've got another 3 hours to chop down, you let me know. I'll be happy to sit down with you anytime.
Sounds good.
Have a great day.
And that wraps up this episode of the Growing Your Team podcast. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, and you have not done so yet, please subscribe to the Growing Your Team podcast so you can stay up to date on all the latest episodes and hear all the greatest tips from our guest experts on how you can grow your team so you can scale your business. And if you haven't done so yet, please consider leaving us a review. I would love to hear what you think of the podcast, and your review will help other people decide if this is the right podcast for them. So once again, thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe and leave us a review.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Growing Your Team with your host, Jamie Van Kite. Be sure to subscribe and head on over to growingyourteam.com to connect, access the show notes, and discover more ways to hire and leverage your perfect fit team.